formative assessment. When she gets ready to give her test, it's going to be on that. So then, once she's ready to give her test, she'll just stick a blank copy of that, and then the results, it'll go in behind that. Okay? And like I said, you can test on one learning target, or you can test, it may one where they're real short, where you can put 4 things together. If you talk about sentence structure, you have how to write a sentence, punctuations, verbs, whatever. And if you break them down into learning targets, and then you'll give that final, summative test. Okay? Yes, sir.
Coach, instead of questions, can that be, can we do like skill tests?
Like, if you're talking about an activity.
Yes, sir.
Okay, but your performance activity, shooting a basketball,
Okay.
then you got a rubric. Okay, what you would do is activity, shooting a basketball, and then I guess if you make
out of 5.
yeah,
Okay.
and then what you do is she made 4, he made 5, he made 1. So what that's telling you is I got to work more on shooting with him, and then that's telling me that I need to probably do something, because you're gonna do it as a group, but I may need to pay more attention to him to make sure his mechanics are right. And then all you do is just shooting and attach that rubric to it.
Okay. And at the end of the 9 weeks, we do a test on that skill. Is there
Right.
a test behind it too?
Now, do you wait till the end of the 9 weeks to do the test, or you do a
Just
test?
like a quiz maybe halfway through, and then we do the bigger test at the end.
Okay, so basically in your shooting, y'all do all of your activities,
Yes, sir.
and then y'all test them at the end. Now at the end, what kind of test do y'all give them? Another skills
We
test?
do another skills test and a written test.
Okay. So if I do one, maybe shooting, another one may be volleyball,
Yes.
another one may be baseball, but y'all don't do a written test until the end.
To the end.
Okay, of the 9 weeks.
Well, semester.
Okay, a semester, so the semester.
Yes, sir.
And in the semester, you have volleyball, baseball,
Yes.
softball, and
Whatever
soccer, or
activity.
whatever.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, just whatever your learning targets is. So what you should have is you have a learning target for basketball, a sample, volleyball, a sample, and then at the end, put a sample of the test and then the results. Okay? Is a little bit clearer now than it was last year. I know we struggled with this last year.
Well, I was doing that whole thing twice.
What were you doing?
Just remember, I had, like I would do that the first time, and then like if I retest or something, I'd do that same thing again. So I had like 2 sets of them.
Right. And what we're trying to do, because y'all remember initially it was teach, test, reteach, and then retest. Okay? This model, what we're trying to do is get it all in the front end. We know what we formatively assess them. And part of this is also, when you want to break it down a little more, is like somebody said, tickets out the door. And then that even breaks it down to what you did on that day's lesson to guide your instruction for either the next day. Okay? So all of those type of formative assessments, you just give examples of that. Okay? Now, you get a parent conference. Okay? Alan Gray's mom is up there. We need a parent conference. He comes to see about his grades. You grab your data notebook, you grab your grade book, you grab samples of student work. Now this just changed into your portfolio. Okay? You don't have to do anything but grab your grade book, grab some student samples, grab your data notebook. Now it just changed into a portfolio. Y'all remember before you had to have a whole separate portfolio and student work and all that kind of stuff. So when you go into the conference, not only can you show them your formative assessments and how Alan did. If Alan is student 1, I can say, okay, I formally assessed him. He had trouble right from the beginning. He only got 1 right, or he didn't get any of them right. So we focused on that with him. And then, he doesn't come to tutoring. You know, we have tutoring, he doesn't come to tutoring. Look at here's his classwork. He's not even trying in class. Here's some samples of his work. You can see he didn't even write here. You see he didn't even finish his sentence here. In my grade book, you see on the first test, you see we had our test right here. He only made a 50. You remember when I sent you that letter home, or I tried to call you, or I emailed you? You know, that's the way a conference should go. And if we're that thorough, I mean, you don't have nothing but support when we leave out of there, okay? But that turns it, doing that is what turns it into a portfolio. So what we try to do here is kill several things with one, you know, take care of several things with one, in one system, okay? So any questions on the data notebook?
Okay, should we keep when we have the data notebook, then we keep separate portfolios for the students, right? If they're working it.
Student work, samples of student work. It can be samples, okay? Because, and that's up to you. Some teachers like to keep all their work. Some teachers like to keep, but you need to keep something. Because when you go to the conference, if you've given everything back, then you have no proof of how they're doing. But along with some samples of work, and along with your grade book, along with your data notebook, you should have a pretty good conference with a lot of information. Okay? The worst thing we can do is show up to a conference empty-handed, and because you know that student already gave his version to his parents of what happened. So we just have to have artifacts, documentation, and proof that this is what we're doing to make your child successful. Okay. Now, as far as our walkthroughs and our formative assessments on some of the things that we're going to be looking for, professional knowledge, instructional planning. When we talk about instructional planning, we'll get that information from your lesson plans, from your curriculum guides, from your pacing guides, and also we'll get information from your minutes when you're doing your collaborative planning. Okay? If one of us are not sitting in there with you. So when you do your collaborative planning, we'll get your minutes from there. Instructional strategies, we'll look at that on our walkthroughs. Differentiated instruction, we'll look for that on our walkthroughs and formative assessments. Now, if we don't, if you're not differentiating that day, we may ask you, when you're differentiating, come back and look at that, or just ask you a question about how you differentiate it. Most likely to be, when are you going to do it, so we can come back and observe it. Assessment strategy, standard 5, and assessment usage or used, standard 6. That's your data notebook. Okay? That'll tell me your assessment strategies, formative assessments. Right here is telling you what you did with the information. And then assessment use, I can look at your samples. Okay, that's where we get that from. Positive learning environment, we observe that when we do our walkthrough. Academically challenging environment, we'll observe that through our walkthroughs. We'll look at the level of questioning and the type of questions that you ask. As far as Bloom's taxonomy, the difference in the level of question is the way you ask the question. If I just ask a simple recall question, then that's a low-level question. But if I ask the same question and tell you to describe or some type of description where they have to write out that answer, well, you just raised that level of question. And on the milestone, for those of you that it'll affect, you'll do a lot of written responses. And on written responses, we need to start now giving those students those type of questions. Now that takes a lot of grading, all right, because they're written response. So what I would do is give more shorter questions, but more tests. That's what I would do. Instead of giving them one test with 25 questions, I would give maybe a test with 5 written response on them so I can still grade them, and I would just give more. Not saying that you can't do multiple choice, but even in the multiple choice, they need to be able to write why they picked that answer. Because if they can write about it, that means that they know it. And those are the type of things that they're going to see on the milestone. And in here, especially with the English, or the ones in here that have milestones, you need to pull your formative assessments from the OAS website. That OAS website, if you're not familiar with it, I think we all are familiar with it. It'll make the test, it'll pull a standard, it'll put the questions in there, it'll even grade it for you.
Yeah, will it grade those written?
No, it won't grade written response. I'm talking about formative assessments. Formative assessments, not summative. But you can look on there for the type of questions when you make your summative, but it'll give you those level of questions that the students will be required to, that the students will see on the milestone. Also the parks, it has a website where you can see some sample questions on there as well. So that's where we need to pull those questions from to make sure that they're used to those type of questions. Also, our special ed teachers that's in here, our inclusion teachers, we're going to look at those IEPs, because I just found out earlier today that on some IEPs, we're doing the shortened responses, where teachers would make a test, and then the inclusion teacher will take the test and remove some stuff from the test. Like if it's 5 multiple choice questions, maybe only give our special ed students 2. That's not a modification. Well, it's a modification, but that ain't the right kind of modification or accommodation. Because if we're doing that, as soon as they see the milestone, I guarantee you they ain't taking no questions away. So they need to be able to see the accommodations are read aloud, giving them more time. We just need to look at our accommodations. But we got to stop. And we write our own IEPs, right? Don't we write the IEPs? Y'all. So shorten those responses need to come out of there, okay? Because they need to look at the same thing all year that they're gonna see on those tests. Because if I'm a student and I'm used to answering 2 questions, and that gives me a 50-50 chance of answering it, and then when I look at a test, I got 5 now, even that little thing right there will throw them off, okay? But we'll talk about that. Okay, any questions on our data notebook? You don't have to go back and try to put stuff in there. We'll just start from this point and move forward. Okay, any questions? Everybody good? All right, good, Audrey?
Yeah, if you're logged into the platform, the TLE platform, we've got to sign off on the pre-evaluation conference. So that's tle.gadle.org. If you don't know your certificate number, you've got to go to that second one, gatsc.com. Once you...
I just want to